And I got talking on this guy on the plane. Turns out he was an executive for a firm here in Philadelphia. And at one point I said, well, how many people work in your organization? I swear to God, he didn't blink. He said, about half of them. So, he said, our only problem is we're not sure what half. And so, again, if you're unsure who's making the job happen for you, you've got to get a little bit close to the topic and realize that everybody wants to be in passion. They want to work for an organization where they could have a pride of association, where they're part of something larger than themselves. And this extends to every single task that they do on a daily basis. I'll give you an example here.
Oh, you're not just going to walk away and give up.
Duck.
You can get that. That's yours. Nobody else. Get in there and give it some heat. Give it some heat. Give it some heat. Get in there. You get it. You go in there, baby. And you go get it hard. You get it. You get it. That's the one right there. You get it. Yeah.
Now, is that or is that not the essence of management right there? Bringing the power to bear, getting the job done. And I think that's what employees are looking for in their managers, being their number one supporter, and it's really not that hard to do. So the notion of recognition is simple. Recognition works. What you recognize will be repeated, guaranteed. For example, you might have heard the story about the farmer that had some pigs. He wanted to get them impregnated. His neighbor owned a boar. So he took the pigs, had an arrangement, took the pigs over to the neighbors and left them there for the afternoon, brought them back, and on the way, as he was leaving, he asked the farmer, how will I know if it took? And his neighbor said, well, that's easy. If it took, tomorrow morning, they'll be rolling in the grass. If it didn't, they'll be rolling in the mud. It's good enough, and next morning, he got up, he's a little eager, and looked out, and wouldn't you know, they're rolling in the mud. So he packed them back in his truck. He took them back again and brought them back. And the second day, got up in the morning to see rolling in the mud again. So undeterred, he packed them in the truck a third time, took them over to his neighbors, brought them back. And the next morning, he had to be in town for business. So he called his wife and said, look out the window and see if the pigs are rolling in the grass or rolling in the mud. And his wife said, neither. They're all in the back of the truck, and one's in the front seat honking the horn. So what you recognize does get repeated. People do look forward to it. Now, it also is I'm trying to match Elliot here. Help me out, will you? It also does drive performance. In fact, the number one in 12 years in the PhD program, and I was at Berkeley, so I know Wharton's the oldest school. Berkeley's the second oldest school in the country. And in 12 years, I had a chance to look at a lot of leadership theories and models, and hands down, the most proven principle of management is you get what you reward. And I'm always reminded by this principle the connection between performance and recognition, because everyone wants performance, but not everyone does recognition as systematically to help drive it. It's got to go hand in hand. And to illustrate that, there's these two gentlemen that both died the same day. One was a New York City cab driver, the other was a Baptist minister. And they got up to the pearly gates, and St. Peter was there, and wouldn't you know, he had an iPad to review the people's lives. And the first gentleman was this cab driver. He was quite impressed. He issued him flowing robes, his own personal cloud, and assisting with the harp, waved him into heaven. And right behind him was this minister. Now, the minister, he reviewed his life, and he issued him a loincloth. And the minister said, I don't want to appear upset here. I'm glad to be in heaven, but I've got to ask why you seemingly treated that cab driver so much better than myself when I spent my entire life in the service of the Lord. And St. Peter said, well, we've moved towards a pay-for-performance system here in heaven. And basically, as you preached, people slept. As that cab driver drove, people prayed. So, again, it's happening everywhere. It's got to happen on your watch as well. Now, for as simple as it is, and I've worked with over 1,000 companies on this topic of recognition to make it part of their culture. And for a simple concept as it is, it always amazes me at how hard it is to get organizations to take it seriously. It seems like a lot of people are looking for a magic bullet. If we did one thing, what might it look like? And if you did do one thing, it might look like something like this.
When we asked Reebok to send us Terry Tate, some people thought we were crazy. But I'm a firm believer in paradigm breaking, outside the box thinking.
Hey, buddy.
Whoa! Break was over 15 minutes ago!
Since Terry's been with us, our productivity has gone up 46%. We're getting more from our employees than ever before.
You know you need a cover sheet on your TPS reports, Richard. That ain't new, baby. Hey, Janice.
But what's really impressed me is how Terry's become part of the Felcher family.
Get out of here!
He fits right in here.
So if there was one thing, it might be something like that, but I think that we don't have that option. Instead, it's a lot of little things. It's a lot of little things on the part of each of the managers in your organization to do in their sphere of influence. Thanking people, involving them in decisions that affect them, asking them for their opinions. The best motivators tend to be things that don't cost much of anything. But it doesn't happen by magic. It can't just happen from HR. It's got to happen from every business leader in the organization. The other question I get quite common that can be frustrating is so many managers and business owners say, why isn't the money enough? You know, we pay people well, we pay them above industry average. Why isn't that enough? And maybe at one time, a long time ago, in the stable, predictable times, it was enough. Today, it's clearly not. Today, when you look at like the millennials, currently the largest generation in the workplace, 36% by 2025 will represent 75% of all workers. They expect to have recognition on a daily basis. Not because they're spoiled and have a frail ego, need to be puffed up, but because they're practical and smart enough to know that in fast-moving, dynamic times, we've got to have a steady stream of feedback, a steady stream of information. And they want to take the guesswork out of it. You've got to make that happen for them if you have any hope to hire them, to hold on to them, and to get the best from them. So when I get asked this question, why isn't money enough? I always like to turn to a higher power, a higher authority for the big questions in life. And yes, I'm talking about Seinfeld.
Maybe you won't like it.
Oh, how could I not like it? Of course I'll like it.
You could not like it.
Just the fact that you remembered means everything.
Of course I remembered. It reminded me every day for 2 months. Oh, the card.
Cash?
What do you think?
You got me cash?
Well, that's right. Figure you can go out and get yourself whatever you want. No good?
Are you my uncle?
Hey, come on. It's $182 there. I don't think that's anything to sneeze at.
Let me see the card. To a wonderful girl, a great pal, and more.
Hey. Oh, Elaine, I'm glad you're here. Stay right here. I'm gonna be right back. Okay.
Pal? You think I'm your pal?
I said, and more.
I am not your pal.
What's wrong with pal? Why is everybody so down on pal?
Oh, what is this?
Yeah.
You got me something?
Yeah, open.
Oh,
This.
Kramer! Oh, the bench! You got me the bench that I
It's pretty good, huh? Great. You remember when we were standing there and she mentioned it? I made a mental note of it.
Well, goody for you.
See, I'm very sensitive about that. I mean, someone's birthday comes up, I keep my ears open. So what'd you get her?
$182?
Cash? You gotta be kidding. What kind of gift is that? That's like something her uncle would give her.
Think where man's glory most begins and ends, and say my glory was I had such a friend.
Yates.
So my hope for this evening is to take this topic of recognition that we're experiencing and to bring it back to your organization. Have a renewed effort to bring it to life and to bring it to the people that are most important to you, including your family and loved ones. Oftentimes they get the dregs of our professional existence. And to remember, if you want to keep people in your life, you've got to recognize them along the way, or it might be too late and you'll lose them. You can't be the old Norwegian couple that was married 50 years. On their 50th wedding anniversary, Ina turns to Olaf and says, "Olaf, you never tell me you love me." Olaf shoots back, "Ina, I told you the day we were married, I love you. Should I ever change my mind, you'll be the first to know." That just doesn't cut it today. Or even, here I wrote the book, even my wife, Jennifer, she recently told me, "Dr. Bob," that's what she calls me, "Dr. Bob, I'm not sure you noticed the new couple that moved in next door." I go, yeah, John and Mary? Sure, I met them. She goes, "Well, I've been watching them, and every morning when John goes to work, he gives Mary a big sloppy kiss on the front door stoop. And every night when he gets home, he does the same thing. And on Fridays, without exception, he brings home a dozen long-stemmed red roses." And she gave me this look that I know some of you guys in the room have gotten from your wives. And she said, "Why can't you do that?" And I thought for a moment, I said, "Well, honey, I suppose I could, but I barely know the girl." So with that, congratulations to all the winners, and Zachary, back over to you, sir.